As the cameras focused on royal smiles, a secret war over priceless jewels was erupting behind palace walls. For decades, the historic tiara collection remained untouched, quietly passed between generations of trusted royals. But a sudden, shocking move by Princess Alexandra shattered the silence, handing the entire legacy to Catherine and pointedly ignoring Camilla's long-standing claim. Why now? And what does it mean? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Behind the palace gates, where tradition is cloaked in ceremony and silence, one woman held a power few dared challenge. Princess Alexandra, quiet, revered, and often overlooked in the modern royal spotlight, was the last living link to a bygone era of dignity, discretion, and unyielding loyalty. For decades, she had served as guardian of the most elusive heirlooms in royal history, the private tiara collection. These weren't simply decorative relics, they were talismans of trust, honor, and lineage. Each piece held stories never told publicly, silently passed from queen to princess, from matriarch to chosen heir. While the world saw crowns glitter under the spotlights, this secret collection was kept deliberately away from museum displays and public eyes, residing in velvet-lined drawers known only to a select few. It was always assumed, almost casually and universally, that Camilla, as queen consort, would be next in line to receive these tiaras. After all, she wore the crown beside Charles, stood at state functions, and carried the weight of royal protocol. But Alexandra's silence spoke louder than royal announcements. For years, she watched, observed, and waited, her decisions unreadable, her intentions guarded. Camilla, perhaps unknowingly, mistook formality for entitlement, and that miscalculation would prove fatal. Because while the queen consort believed the jewels were her due, Alexandra had already begun steering the legacy elsewhere to someone she believed embodied the values she had sworn to protect. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had risen through the ranks not by force, but by grace. She had weathered relentless media storms, internal cold wars, and whispers meant to unsettle her. And yet, with every public appearance and every silent nod from the more traditional royals, her presence had only grown stronger. Alexandra, no stranger to the trials of royal womanhood, had seen in Catherine not just a future queen, but a living echo of the legacy she held sacred. With Charles's reign marked by visible fractures and Camilla's image still struggling for uncontested acceptance, the moment had arrived for Alexandra to act. Her decision wasn't sudden, it had been building, hidden beneath decades of restraint and reflection. So, when she finally handed over the tiara collection to Catherine, it wasn't merely an act of gifting, it was a declaration. A coded message, spoken not in press releases, but in heritage. One that bypassed the current queen consort and crowned a different kind of successor, not through blood, but through belief. The symbolic weight of that choice was seismic, quietly shattering the illusion of unity and forcing the royal family to confront truths they had long buried. Catherine now held more than jewels. She held a legacy entrusted by one of the oldest living witnesses to monarchy's sacred past. But this wasn't just about diamonds and legacy. Alexandra's decision carried the weight of unspoken truths that had festered in the shadows of the monarchy. Not all treasures of the crown are on display in the Tower of London. Buried in secrecy lies a private collection passed down not through title, but through trust. The tiaras Alexandra gave to Catherine weren't merely ornaments. They were whispered testaments of loyalty, sacrifice, and betrayal across generations. Behind the glitter of televised ceremonies and official archives lies a realm few ever access, the hidden heirlooms of the House of Windsor, veiled in velvet, bound not by law, but by legacy. These were not catalogued in any museum or recorded in any public inventory. They were handed down in silence, their worth not counted in carats, but in the secrets they carried. Some were smuggled across borders during wartime escapes, wrapped in linens as their owners fled bombs and betrayal. Others were gifted in clandestine ceremonies between royals, whose stories never reached the public. There was the tiara worn by a royal bride, whose marriage had been annulled in scandal, and yet the gem remained, a silent marker of forbidden loyalty. One had passed through the hands of a princess exiled for love, returned decades later with a letter pleading it never be worn again unless by someone who knew restraint. These pieces didn't glitter for the cameras. They glowed in memory, bound to the women who carried the crown in silence, without demand. Princess Alexandra had become the unlikely sentinel of this legacy, not because she was the loudest or the most politically placed, but because she had earned the trust of the one who guarded it before her, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. In her final years, the Queen Mother had made an unspoken yet powerful transfer of responsibility, not through formal decrees, but through a handwritten note and a quiet embrace. She entrusted Alexandra to protect not just the jewels, but what they meant. Alexandra took that vow seriously. She didn't flaunt it. She didn't use it. She simply waited and watched. Through marriages, divorces, affairs, abdications, scandals, and reinventions, she never once opened that vault without purpose. So, when Catherine's name was whispered in Alexandra's inner circle, it wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of years of quiet observation. The tiaras were never intended for someone who merely wore a title. They were meant for someone who understood the unspoken cost of loyalty, someone who knew when not to speak, when not to react, someone who, like the women before her, had walked through fire and smiled through it. Camilla, for all her titles and public transformation, was never named. Not in a single letter, not in a single moment. Her name was never etched into the emotional bloodline that governed this sacred legacy. It wasn't rejection, it was omission. And omission is often louder than denial, because in Alexandra's world, titles were given, but trust was earned, and Catherine had earned it quietly, patiently, completely. The vault was opened, not by decree, but by decision, a personal, irreversible decision, a decision Camilla never saw coming. And just when Camilla believed her crown was secure, a whispered message from Alexandra changed everything. In a locked royal drawing room, without cameras or staff, Princess Alexandra summoned Catherine for a meeting no one expected. What was spoken during that quiet hour sent ripples through the royal family. As one woman handed over a legacy, the other was left with questions that demanded answers. There was no announcement, no royal schedule update, no advance notice given to the king's private secretary. It was deliberate. Catherine, still unaware of the true weight of what was about to unfold, was simply told to arrive discreetly alone. Those closest to Alexandra later revealed she had been waiting for the precise moment, watching for a sign of certainty before making a move that would not only defy tradition, but potentially ignite backlash from the very top of the monarchy. When Catherine entered the room, the atmosphere was thick with an unspoken gravity. Alexandra, aged but unmistakably resolute, didn't waste time with formality. She looked Catherine in the eye and said only 7 words that would change everything. "You are the one who understands duty." On the table between them was a velvet box, simple, understated, yet steeped in significance. Inside were 3 tiaras, each chosen with unmistakable purpose. One belonged to a queen who abdicated everything but honor. Another had survived a Nazi raid, hidden beneath floorboards for 2 years. The third, never publicly seen, had only ever been worn by women who were known for keeping the crown intact during internal storms. Alongside the jewels were aged letters, some dating back to Queen Mary herself. They weren't merely correspondence, they were confessions, instructions, and emotional testaments to what these tiaras truly represented. Alexandra handed them over, not with flourish, but with conviction. Then came the words that would haunt royal chambers long after. "These are not for her. She will never understand what they mean." Catherine's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't come expecting gifts, certainly not a collection of such consequence. But more than that, she hadn't expected Alexandra's confession. The older royal admitted, in words both firm and mournful, that she had never been able to trust Camilla with the legacy. Not because of personal dislike, but because she feared Camilla viewed the crown as a reward, not a responsibility. "She came in through the side door," Alexandra reportedly said, "and she's still trying to redecorate the throne." It was an indictment veiled in civility, but Catherine felt its power as sharply as if it had been shouted. Catherine, overwhelmed and deeply moved, made a quiet vow, one not recorded in documents or echoed in speeches. She would protect the legacy, not just the tiaras, but the spirit they represented, the dignity, the discretion, the devotion to something greater than the self. It was a promise made without ceremony, but etched into royal history all the same. She left the room in silence, changed, burdened, chosen. But even before Catherine left the room, word of the meeting had already reached ears it was never meant to, and one of them was Camilla. The palace was rocked by fury as Camilla confronted Princess Alexandra in what insiders called a Cold War disguised by pearls. Behind closed doors, Camilla's voice reportedly cracked with rage, claiming she had been promised the jewels years ago. But Alexandra's chilling reply would leave even the king speechless. It began with an eerie silence in the corridors, whispers, glances, the kind of tension that made even seasoned aides tread lightly. Behind her carefully curated public poise, Camilla was seething. The news of Alexandra's meeting with Catherine had spread quickly, despite every attempt at discretion. It wasn't just the passing of the tiaras that shook her, but the very notion that she had been intentionally excluded. For Camilla, who had fought for decades to earn her place, who had stood beside Charles through scandal and scrutiny, this felt like a dagger through the veil of legitimacy she had worked so hard to construct. What made it worse was the quiet no warning, no explanation, just the sting of a historic collection bypassing her, without so much as a word. It wasn't an oversight, it was a decision, and she knew it. The confrontation, according to palace insiders, happened swiftly and without ceremony. Camilla approached Alexandra with an intensity rarely seen. Senior aides reportedly witnessed the Queen Consort's entrance into Alexandra's private salon, her voice shaking with suppressed rage as she demanded answers. "You told me I was next," she is said to have declared. But Alexandra, composed and unwavering, didn't flinch. Her reply cut deeper than any raised voice could. Tradition and title are not the same. One is inherited, the other is earned. That single sentence, uttered with chilling calm, marked a line in the sand no one had expected Alexandra to draw so publicly. In that moment, every unspoken truth, every fracture within the monarchy came to the surface. It wasn't about jewels, it was about worth. And Camilla, for all her titles, had just been told she did not qualify in the eyes of one of the oldest and most respected royals alive. King Charles, caught in the middle of this private storm, reportedly said nothing at first. Those present say his silence was deafening, torn between devotion to his wife and reverence for a cousin who represented a vanishing era of duty. Charles found himself paralyzed. He couldn't reverse Alexandra's decision, but he also couldn't afford for Camilla to feel humiliated. Catherine, aware of the chaos that had erupted in her name, quietly withdrew from all palace engagements for the next 72 hours. Not out of guilt, but respect. Her absence spoke volumes, refusing to gloat, refusing to engage in the pettiness that now gripped the highest levels of royalty. But Camilla, pushed into a corner, wasn't done. She was heard telling a senior aide in a voice low and cold, "This is far from over," and no one doubted that she meant it. Whatever restraint had governed her ascent thus far was now gone. What Alexandra set in motion was more than a rebuke, it was a spark, and Camilla, scorned and rattled, was ready to ignite her response. As the tension escalated, the Queen Consort wasn't the only one plotting a comeback. An unexpected document would soon add fuel to the fire. Just when the palace thought the worst had passed, a lost letter from Queen Elizabeth II was unearthed, sealed in her private writing box, and addressed only to Alexandra. What it contained shattered the illusion of harmony and confirmed fears that this was no simple act of preference. It was a decree from the past. It was supposed to be a routine archival inspection, part of an internal audit quietly ordered to preserve Windsor's private records. No press, no spectacle. But inside a faded chest behind documents long catalogued and forgotten, a small envelope emerged. Hand-addressed in the Queen's unmistakable script, it bore no date on the outside, only one word: Alexandra. What lay inside would pierce the carefully constructed silence that had surrounded the monarchy's internal affairs for decades. The letter, dated 5 months before Her Majesty's death, was her final personal instruction to her cousin and confidant. What it revealed was far more than sentiment. It was strategy, it was foresight, and it was an unflinching judgment on the future of the monarchy. In her own words, the late Queen expressed concern over what she termed conflicted interests in future representation. It was not a direct attack, but the meaning was clear. She feared the symbolism and optics of the crown falling into hands that might not guard it with the same discipline, restraint and sacrifice that she and her predecessors had maintained. While she never named Camilla outright, she didn't have to. The letter referenced those who rose through controversy and figures whose entry into royal life demanded public reconciliation rather than quiet service. It was a haunting observation, one made with both wisdom and wariness. In contrast, she praised Catherine's unshaken steadiness, her measured dignity, and her absence of spectacle. The Queen wrote of watching her from afar, not in moments of glamour, but in hardship, and of recognizing in her the very marrow of monarchy. But the letter didn't stop at praise. It concluded with something more potent, a blessing. Queen Elizabeth formally bestowed her personal endorsement, T for the transfer of the private tiara collection, into the hands of whoever Alexandra deemed worthy. That final sentence, "May these symbols of duty continue in the care of those who understand their silence," was the confirmation no one saw coming. It wasn't Alexandra acting alone. It was the last queen standing passing the torch before the lights went out. And with that, every claim Camilla had presumed to hold was effectively nullified. The fallout was instant. Though the letter was not meant for public release, its discovery could not be contained within palace walls. Select members of the royal inner circle were briefed, and whispers began circulating among the aristocracy. The letter was more than evidence. It was a mirror held to the face of the monarchy's future. Camilla's growing sense of betrayal deepened. What had first seemed like an internal snub now revealed itself as a premeditated strike from beyond the grave. One queen had made her decision, and the other was left to reckon with it. But as one queen's voice echoed from beyond the grave, another royal was about to challenge everything, demanding justice in the court of public opinion. Suddenly, tabloids loyal to Camilla went into overdrive, stories slamming Catherine's ambition and painting Alexandra as out of touch. A coordinated campaign emerged, and it was clear this wasn't just a royal disagreement, it was a full-scale public relations war. Within days of the letter's discovery and the whispers surrounding Alexandra's bold handover, headlines began to explode with suspicious synchronization. Certain media outlets, ones long known for subtly favoring Camilla's image rehabilitation, began spinning a new narrative. Catherine, once heralded as the picture of grace and humility, was now being recast as calculated, controlling, and power-hungry. Front pages questioned whether she was rewriting royal protocol from the shadows, while opinion columns pondered aloud if Alexandra, at her advanced age, had fallen victim to internal manipulation. The framing was deliberate and brutal, suggesting not only that Catherine had usurped something she had no right to, but that Alexandra was too frail to see it. It wasn't simply character assassination, it was an orchestrated attempt to recast the truth before it fully took hold. And then came the real blow, allegations that Catherine had hoarded royal heirlooms. In one damning piece, anonymous sources claimed that several historical items once shared among royal women had been mysteriously reallocated to Kensington Palace, implying hoarding and even dishonesty. The public, reeling from months of subtle royal friction, found itself divided. Social media platforms lit up with firestorms of opinion. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Team Catherine surged in response to hashtag Not My Future Queen. Anonymous royal aides, speaking to more balanced outlets, hinted that leaks were without question coming from Camilla's inner circle. Yet the Queen Consort's office, when approached, remained stone silent, offering no denials, no clarifications, only the kind of cold detachment that deepens suspicion. Amid the frenzy, Alexandra withdrew from the public eye entirely, refusing interviews or comments, but the attacks didn't spare her. Critics labelled her anachronistic, a royal relic stuck in the past, and reckless with succession optics. For the first time in her long-standing royal service, her reputation was being weaponized against her. And yet, within the storm, something remarkable began to shift. Catherine remained silent, utterly silent. No statements, no aides rushing to defend her, no leaks, just poise. And as days passed, that silence began to speak louder than all the headlines combined. Public perception slowly shifted again. If Catherine were guilty of selfish ambition, why hadn't she fought back? Why hadn't she clung to the media microphone as others had? Then came William's silence, equally deafening. He was visible, active in engagements, but carefully sidestepped every opportunity to comment. That refusal, in the eyes of many, was seen not as indifference but quiet solidarity. A prince standing by his wife not through press briefings, but presence. And suddenly the narrative shifted again. The PR war had backfired. What was meant to portray Catherine as divisive had only magnified her restraint while exposing the desperation behind Camilla's press machinery. But as headlines flared and tempers rose, it was an unlikely royal who stepped forward to deliver the final blow and silence the noise once and for all. When Princess Anne speaks, the monarchy listens. Known for her steel resolve and disdain for drama, Anne took an unprecedented step, publicly supporting Alexandra's choice and quietly aligning with Catherine. In a single move, she signaled where the future of the monarchy truly lies. It was a statement so brief, yet so thunderous in implication that it halted the swirling storm of speculation with a single strike. Anne, never one to indulge in palace theatrics or emotional declarations, issued a measured unmistakable statement. Legacy must be honored with integrity, not entitlement. She did not name names. She didn't have to. In those 12 words, Anne broke ranks with the traditional silence of the senior royals and placed herself firmly beside Catherine and Alexandra. Insiders say the move was months in the making. While the press had been distracted by Camilla's media allies and Catherine's silence, Anne had been conducting a quiet campaign of her own back-channel conversations, closed-door discussions, and a series of private meetings with those who still understood that royal duty wasn't just about bloodlines, but belief. Her endorsement came at a moment when the royal family was fracturing beneath the weight of competing loyalties. Camilla, desperate to regain control of the narrative, attempted to summon support among her limited inner circle former courtiers, sympathetic columnists, even foreign dignitaries with vague connections to the crown. But her efforts fell flat. The queen consort's power, it seemed, was limited to the ceremonial. In contrast, Anne's quiet authority had become the true force within the family, respect earned not through spotlight, but through sacrifice. Her support sent a ripple effect throughout the palace. Courtiers who had remained neutral began realigning their loyalties. Senior royals who had stayed on the sidelines began appearing more publicly with Catherine, offering smiles, gestures, and subtle signals that showed where the real influence now rested. Even King Charles, burdened by the deepening tension and exhausted by the quiet civil war unfolding inside his own court, began to retreat. Those close to him admitted privately that he felt cornered, powerless to mend the divisions, and aware that his own silence had only deepened the divide. He did not contradict Anne. He did not defend Camilla. And for many, that was the clearest message yet. The balance of power had shifted, and it had not shifted in Camilla's favor. As for Catherine, she responded not with press conferences or public gestures, but with a simple act accepting Anne's invitation to a private luncheon at Gatcombe Park. No aides, no photographers. Just two women who understood that the future of the monarchy depended not on titles, but on trust. The message was received loud and clear. Anne had not merely defended Alexandra's decision, she had reinforced it, cemented it. And with that, the battle for the tiaras had become something far greater, a referendum on who the royal family would choose to carry its legacy forward. And yet, even as the dust seemed to settle, a final twist emerged from Alexandra's private archives, one that redefined the true meaning of her decision. It wasn't just Catherine. Alexandra had prepared a list, sealed and locked away, that named the women she believed should one day wear the tiaras. And nowhere on that list was Camilla, nor her descendants. The implications were generational, deliberate and irreversible. The discovery was made by a senior aide while organizing Alexandra's private files at Clarence House. Tucked behind a portrait and secured inside a decades-old oak chest was a folder, unassuming on the surface but labeled in the princess's meticulous script, Succession of Elegance. Inside, not just jewelry inventories or ceremonial notes, but a list, names written in Alexandra's unmistakable hand. 4. Women. No explanations. No annotations beyond a single line beside each name, words that revealed the soul of a dying era and the legacy it hoped to protect. Catherine, balance and silence in the storm. Charlotte, poise before pride. Lady Louise, the spirit of restraint reborn. Zara Tyndall, strength without spectacle. Not one drop of ink spilled for Camilla or her bloodline. No mention of her step-grandchildren. The omission was not oversight. It was intentional. A verdict. A boundary drawn in ink where no words were spoken aloud. But what shook the palace even more than the list itself was the clarity of thought behind it. Alexandra had recorded a private statement, dated a year prior, explaining her choices. Her voice, calm yet unyielding, stated, "True royalty is earned, not inherited by marriage. These pieces are not trophies, they are reminders. To wear them is to bear the weight of generations, and to do so without seeking attention for it." In that moment, she stripped away the illusion that tradition alone dictated inheritance. Alexandra was setting a new course, one grounded not in hierarchy, but in character. The fallout was immediate. Courtiers who had once questioned the depth of Alexandra's intentions now understood this was not a spontaneous act of defiance. It was legacy management, centuries of weighty symbolism, passed not to those with titles, but to those who had proven their worth in silence, in resilience, and in loyalty to something larger than themselves. Catherine's inclusion was not a surprise to those who knew Alexandra well, but the presence of Princess Charlotte, Lady Louise and Zara signaled a deeper plan. This wasn't just about now, this was a blueprint for generations to come. A vision of femininity in the monarchy, rooted not in glamour, but in grace. Catherine was seen leaving Clarence's house that evening with the document secured in her handbag. No fanfare, no announcement, but witnesses noted the change in her posture and even firmer resolve in her silence. She was now the living bearer of a lineage that reached beyond crowns and titles. One defined by discipline, by invisible labor, by the women who had carried the monarchy not through dominance but through dignity. But the list was just the beginning. Alexandra had left behind one final move, and it would be delivered only after her passing. In a letter timed to be released only upon her death, Princess Alexandra left behind her final words, a command not just for the royal family, but for the people of the realm. It wasn't about tiaras anymore. It was about legacy, justice, and trust. The news broke quietly but landed like thunder. Princess Alexandra had passed in the early hours of a quiet morning, her final breath leaving behind not only a chapter of royal history, but a sealed envelope with instructions that would reshape the crown's emotional center. As palace staff lowered the flag to half-mast, silence fell across Windsor and Clarence House alike. Alexandra had always carried herself like a shadow, calm, composed, rarely at the forefront, yet in death she emerged as the voice of conscience the monarchy didn't know it still had. That very afternoon, under the highest security and deepest privacy, a small council was convened. Among those in attendance were only a handful: Princess Anne, stoic as ever; Catherine, eyes unreadable but posture resolute; and two trusted archivists. The letter was unsealed, and what was read sent quiet tremors through the room. Alexandra reaffirmed the transfer of the private tiara collection with absolute finality. She wrote, not as a royal, but as a woman who had spent a lifetime watching the crown drift between ceremony and soul. "Let this be my last act in service," she wrote, "to place heritage where it will be guarded, not displayed." She praised Catherine's restraint, her loyalty, her ability to endure humiliation without retaliation. And then came a line that struck even the most hardened aides: "May the crown look beyond noise and recognize the power of silence when silence is strength." But it wasn't only a statement of endorsement. It was a warning, a plea. Alexandra implored the royal family to let dignity prevail in times of division. She knew what would come, the bitterness, the fallout, the accusations. But she reminded them, A monarch's jewels mean nothing without the moral fabric of those who wear them. Since the letter's release, Camilla has not been seen. No public appearances, no statements, not even a scheduled engagement attended. Sources say she was given the letter privately in advance. What she did with it, no one knows. But her silence, so pointed in a time of controversy, speaks volumes. The palace has since begun an internal shift, small, calculated. Ceremonial roles previously spread thin are being quietly repositioned around Catherine. Invitations for royal representation now lean toward her office. And within the family, even former skeptics have acknowledged that Alexandra's choice wasn't just sentimental, it was strategic, forward-looking. It was about monarchy's soul. As for Catherine, she has made no comment, no tribute speech, no photograph released with the jewels. But those closest to her say she keeps Alexandra's letter in a private drawer, opened only once since that council. She understands now more than ever that what she carries is not just history, it's a compass, a legacy of values chosen not by lineage, but by belief. Alexandra did not pass down a collection, she passed down a mission. And so, in a quiet but seismic shift, the jewels passed into hands not of title but of trust. A new chapter of monarchy began with a whisper, not a coronation. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.